The first time I saw Kara Voss, she was covered in engine grease and swearing at a malfunctioning plasma coupling with words that would have made a Crithian pirate blush. I should clarify something right away. My name is Thel'rax, of the Varroc Dominion, 4th Fleet Commander, conqueror of the Outer Rim, and bearer of 17 battle honors that each took a standard decade to earn. I had subjugated 43 planetary systems without a single defeat. I was very good at my job, which primarily involved showing up, making demands, and watching civilizations crumble before the might of our armada. Earth was supposed to be easy. Laughably easy, actually. The planet had barely achieved rudimentary FTL travel. Their weapons technology was primitive. Their political systems were fractured and chaotic. According to our intelligence reports, they still used combustion engines for recreational purposes and considered reality television to be entertainment. These were not the hallmarks of a sophisticated species. So when my flagship, the Eternal Dominance, which I will admit is a rather pretentious name, but I did not choose it, entered Earth's orbit with a fleet of 200 warships, I expected the usual response: fear, panic, desperate attempts at communication, followed by inevitable surrender. What I got instead was a teenager with grease on her face telling me to go reproduce with myself in a manner that was both anatomically creative and physically impossible. But I am getting ahead of myself. The initial contact went exactly as planned. We broadcast our standard subjugation message across all Earth frequencies. The speech was elegant, efficient, honed through centuries of use. People of Earth, you are now subjects of the Varroc Dominion. Surrender all military assets, disband your governments, and prepare for integration into our empire. Resistance is futile. Compliance is mandatory. You have 12 standard hours to respond. 12 hours passed. Their response arrived in the form of a single transmission from a dusty military installation somewhere in the middle of a desert. The human who appeared on screen was elderly, wearing a uniform covered in colorful bits of metal and fabric. A general, according to our translator. "Yeah, about that," the general said, scratching his chin thoughtfully. "We are going to have to decline your generous offer of subjugation, but thank you for thinking of us." I blinked all three of my primary eyes in confusion. "You are declining?" "That is correct." "You do understand that we have 200 warships in orbit around your planet?" "Oh, we noticed. They are very shiny. Must be a pain to keep clean." This was not going according to protocol. "General, I do not think you comprehend the severity of your situation. We have the capability to reduce your entire civilization to ash within a matter of hours." The general smiled, showing his flat omnivore teeth. "Commander Thel'rax, is it? Here is the thing. We have been doing war for a very long time. We are surprisingly good at it. We do it to ourselves constantly, in fact. So when you show up and demand we surrender without even the courtesy of trying to kill us first? Well, that just seems rude. You are insane. Been called worse by better. You have yourself a pleasant day, Commander. Oh, and one more thing. See that girl behind me?" The camera angle widened. Standing behind the general was a young human female, maybe 20 standard years old, if I was judging their aging process correctly. She had dark hair pulled back in a messy configuration, grease stains on her clothing, and eyes that held absolutely no fear whatsoever. She waved casually at the camera. "That is Kara Voss," the general continued. "She is one of our engineers, dropped out of university after 2 years because she said the professors were teaching outdated methods. She has been working in our experimental weapons division ever since. She wanted me to give you a message." Kara stepped forward, leaning into the camera. "Try forcing us." The transmission ended. I sat in my command chair, mandibles hanging open in shock. In 4 centuries of military service, no one had ever spoken to me like that. No one had ever dared. "Sir?" My tactical officer, a competent if unimaginative female named Rixta, turned to face me. "What are your orders?" I should have bombarded them immediately. I should have made an example of their pathetic little planet and moved on to the next target. But something in that human girl's eyes had sparked a curiosity I had not felt in decades. They could not possibly hope to resist us. This would be over quickly. "Send a strike team to that military installation," I ordered. "Capture the girl and the general. Bring them to me. I want to understand what makes these humans so confident in their impending doom." The strike team consisted of 30 elite Varroc shock troopers, each armed with plasma rifles and protected by personal shield generators. They dropped from orbit in armored pods, landed in the desert with textbook precision, and proceeded to assault the human facility. 17 minutes later, I received a priority transmission from the strike team leader. He appeared on my screen looking decidedly less elite than when he had departed. His armor was scorched, one of his mandibles was broken, and there was something sticky and purple splattered across his chest plate. "Commander, we have encountered an unexpected situation." Define unexpected. "The facility is defended by weaponry we did not anticipate. They are using kinetic accelerators with guided munitions, electromagnetic pulse devices, and something they call cluster bombs, which I can only describe as aggressively unfriendly. Also, the girl? She is personal leading the defense, and she is very good at it." In the background, I could hear explosions and what sounded like human laughter. "Is that girl laughing while shooting at you?" "Yes, sir. She finds this amusing, apparently." More explosions. The strike team leader flinched as something detonated near his position. "Sir, respectfully, I recommend we withdraw and reassess our approach. These humans are not behaving according to any tactical parameters I have ever encountered." I terminated the connection and sat back in my chair, processing this information. A single human facility, defended by primitive technology, and 1 engineering student had just repelled my elite shock troopers. This was unacceptable. This was embarrassing. This was, against all logic and reason, somewhat impressive. "Rixta, pull up the intelligence files on human military history." She complied, and I spent the next several hours reviewing the data. What I found was disturbing. Humans had been engaged in organized warfare for their entire recorded history. They fought over resources, territory, ideology, religion, and sometimes for reasons that seemed to boil down to simple boredom. They had developed thousands of different weapon systems, tactics, and strategies. They had survived multiple near-extinction events of their own making and kept right on fighting. But more interesting than what they fought was how they fought. They were innovative to the point of insanity. When conventional tactics failed, they invented new ones. When their weapons proved insufficient, they built better weapons. When faced with impossible odds, they either found a way to win or made sure their enemies paid dearly for victory. They had once defeated a numerically superior force by hiding inside a large wooden horse, which seemed ridiculous until I realized it had actually worked. They also had a disturbing tendency to fight harder when cornered. Most species became more compliant when faced with overwhelming force. Humans became more dangerous. "This is fascinating," I murmured, scrolling through battle reports from something called World War II. "Rixta, look at this." They were fighting on 6 continents simultaneously, coordinating millions of troops, while also developing atomic weapons. They are terrifyingly good at logistics. Sir, with respect, they are still just one primitive planet. We have conquered species far more advanced than them. Have we? I gestured at the display. Show me another species that has weaponized everything from pointed sticks to antimatter in the span of 10,000 years. Show me another species that treats interplanetary war as a tactical problem to be solved rather than an existential crisis to be feared. I zoomed in on a particular battle. Humans defending a city called Stalingrad, fighting building by building, room by room, for months. Not because they had superior weapons or tactics, but because they simply refused to stop fighting. They do not surrender, I said quietly. That is what makes them different. They do not surrender even when they should. A new transmission arrived from Earth. This time, it was just Kara Voss, sitting in what appeared to be a workshop. Behind her, I could see other humans working on various mechanical projects. One was assembling something that looked suspiciously like a directed energy weapon. Another was welding armor plating onto what I recognized as a civilian transport vehicle. "Commander Thel'rax," Kara said, waving cheerfully. "Thanks for sending your troops. They were excellent target practice. My team needed the warm-up." "Target practice? I sent elite warriors to capture you." "Oh, I know. They were very professional about it, right up until Jenkins hit them with the surprise railgun. We have been working on that for weeks, and it performed beautifully. Thank your soldiers for volunteering to field test it." I felt my primary heart rate increasing. This human was taunting me. "You cannot possibly believe you can resist the full might of the Varroc Dominion." "Cannot possibly resist?" Kara leaned back in her chair, propping her feet up on the desk. "Commander, let me explain something about humans. We are really, really bad at accepting the word cannot. It is like a personal challenge to us. You tell us we cannot do something, and suddenly that becomes the only thing we want to do. That is the stupidest survival strategy I have ever heard. Oh, completely stupid. Absolutely insane. We know this about ourselves, but here is the thing. It works surprisingly often." She stood up and walked toward the camera, her expression shifting from playful to serious. "You want to conquer Earth? You are going to have to earn it. Every city, every town, every dusty outpost in the middle of nowhere. We will make you fight for every inch. And yeah, you will probably win eventually because you have more ships and better technology. But by the time you are done, you are going to look at the cost in ships, troops, and resources, and you are going to wonder if it was worth it." "You are bluffing." "Am I?" She smiled again, but this time there was something predatory in it. "Want to find out?" Another human entered the frame, this one male, carrying a tablet. "Kara, the orbital defense platforms are online. Also, Martinez says the submarine fleet is ready for deployment." "Submarine fleet?" I interrupted. "Those are underwater vessels. How are submarines relevant to orbital warfare?" Kara's smile widened. "You will see. Oh, and, Commander, one more thing. You gave us 12 hours to prepare. That was very generous of you. We really appreciate the extra time." The transmission ended. I sat in silence for a long moment, processing what had just happened. Then I began to laugh. It started as a small chuckle but grew into full, booming laughter that echoed through the command deck. My crew stared at me with concern, probably wondering if I had finally lost my mind. "Sir?" Rixta ventured cautiously. "Are you all right?" "I am perfect, Rixta. Do you know how long it has been since I faced an actual challenge?" How many years since I encountered an enemy who made me think, made me plan, made me work for victory? These humans, with their primitive technology and insane confidence, they might actually make this interesting. I leaned forward, studying the planet below. Somewhere down there, Kara Voss was preparing defenses, rallying her people, doing everything in her power to make my invasion as difficult as possible. And for the first time in decades, I felt truly alive. "Prepare for full-scale planetary assault," I ordered, "but proceed carefully. These humans are more dangerous than they appear." "How dangerous can they be, sir? They still use chemical propulsion for most of their spacecraft." I thought about the railgun Kara had mentioned, about the submarine fleet, about the orbital defense platforms they had apparently constructed in 12 hours, about the way that girl had looked at me through the camera, not with fear or even defiance, but with the absolute certainty that she was going to make me regret ever coming to her planet. "Rixta, let me share something I learned from studying human history. They once had a saying, 'Do not poke the bear.'" "What is a bear, sir?" "A large predatory mammal native to Earth, extremely dangerous when provoked. The humans used it as a metaphor for their own species." I pulled up tactical displays, planning our assault vectors. "We just poked the bear, Rixta. Now we get to see what happens." The first wave of orbital bombardment began at dawn, Earth time. We targeted military installations, communication hubs, and industrial centers. Standard procedure, designed to cripple their infrastructure and break their will to resist. The humans responded by launching everything they had. And I do mean everything. Missiles streaked up from ground-based launchers. Railgun platforms that should not have existed fired magnetically accelerated projectiles at near-relativistic speeds. Laser arrays, hidden in what our scans had identified as civilian buildings, carved through the hulls of our lighter ships. And yes, somehow, some way, they managed to get those submarines involved by converting their launch tubes to fire surface to orbit munitions. It was chaos. It was improvised. It was tactically brilliant in its sheer audacity. "Sir, we are taking casualties," Rixta reported, her voice rising in pitch. "The fierce victory just lost main power. The eternal judgment is venting atmosphere. They have hit 7 ships in the last 3 minutes." "How are they targeting us so effectively? Our ships have full stealth capabilities." "Unknown, sir. It is like they can see exactly where we are." I pulled up external cameras and watched as a human missile, probably built in someone's garage based on its design, slammed into the shields of a nearby cruiser. The warhead detonated not with explosive force, but with electromagnetic pulse, temporarily disabling the ship's defenses long enough for a follow-up strike to punch through the hull. They are coordinating their attacks, I realized. Each strike is designed to enable the next one. This is not random firing. This is a planned strategy. And somewhere down there, I knew, Kara Voss was probably laughing her head off while orchestrating this beautiful, terrible chaos. I opened a communication channel to the entire fleet. All ships, pull back to high orbit, maintain defensive formations, and prepare for extended siege operations. "Sir, we are retreating?" "We are reassessing, Rixta. There is a difference." I watched the planet slowly rotate beneath us, this small blue and green world that had just bloodied the nose of the Varroc Dominion's 4th Fleet. These humans want to fight? Very well, but we are going to do this properly. No more assumptions, no more underestimating. We are going to study them, learn their patterns, and then we are going to take their planet apart, piece by methodical piece. "And the girl, sir? Kara Voss?" I smiled, feeling my mandibles click together in anticipation. Her? I am going to capture her personally, and then I am going to find out what makes a human engineer think she can stand against an empire that has conquered half the galaxy. A new transmission arrived. Of course it did. Because apparently, humans could not resist gloating. Kara appeared on screen again, this time with soot on her face and what looked like burn marks on her jacket. Behind her, I could see celebration. Humans cheering, embracing, laughing with the manic energy of people who had just survived something they had no right to survive. "Nice shooting, Commander," she said. "You took out 3 of our cities, 2 military bases, and a really expensive satellite array. That makes you officially the worst house guest we have ever had. And we once hosted a diplomatic summit that ended in a food fight. This is not over, human." "Oh, I know it is not over. It is barely started." She leaned closer to the camera. "But here is what I want you to understand. You thought we would break. You thought we would see your ships and your weapons and your fancy empire, and we would just give up. You were wrong. I have conquered civilizations that would consider your entire species primitive. Great, wonderful, fantastic resume. But those civilizations were not human." She pointed at me through the screen. "We do not break, Commander. We bend, we adapt, we improvise. We take your best shot, and we keep standing. And when you think you have finally beaten us, that is when we get creative. You are going to lose, Kara Voss. You must know this." "Maybe," she admitted with a shrug. "Probably, even. But you are going to remember us. Every ship you lose, every soldier who does not come home, every resource you waste trying to conquer one stubborn little planet. You are going to remember that humans do not go quietly. We do not surrender with grace. And we definitely do not make it easy." She started to reach for the disconnect button, then paused. "Oh, and Commander? About your ships that are damaged. My people have been analyzing their design during the battle. Nice work on the shield harmonics, by the way. Very sophisticated. Took us almost 3 whole minutes to figure out the frequency pattern. We have already started working on countermeasures." 3 minutes? That is impossible. That word again. You really need to stop using it around humans. It just encourages us. The transmission ended, leaving me staring at a blank screen. Rixta cleared her throat nervously. "Sir? What are your orders?" I looked at my tactical display, at the damaged ships, at the planet below where 8 billion humans were probably already planning their next defense. I thought about Kara Voss, covered in soot and grease, grinning like a maniac while her world burned around her. "We dig in," I said finally. "This is going to take longer than I thought." 3 weeks into the siege, I had learned several important things about humans. First, they were excellent at using duct tape. This was apparently an adhesive fabric material that could repair almost anything, and they treated it with an almost religious reverence. I had watched through surveillance drones as human engineers used it to seal hull breaches, fix weapon systems, and on one memorable occasion, temporarily reattach a limb until proper medical care could be administered. Second, they had an inexplicable fondness for stimulant beverages. Coffee, they called it. A bitter brown liquid that smelled like burnt plant matter and tasted, according to our chemical analysis, like it should be classified as a mild poison. Yet they consumed it constantly, often joking that it was more valuable than ammunition. Third, and most importantly, they absolutely refused to follow any reasonable military doctrine. "Sir, the humans have abandoned the coastal defense installations," Rixta reported, highlighting sectors on the tactical map. "They are falling back to inland positions." Finally, Some sense. Prepare bombardment of the now vacant positions before they can regroup. Sir, the positions are not vacant. They left automated systems behind, and chickens. I rotated two of my eyes toward her. Chickens? Yes, sir. Domestic fowl. Approximately 200 of them. They appear to be wandering freely through the installations, triggering motion sensors, and making our targeting systems identify them as active combatants. I pulled up the drone footage. Sure enough, small feathered creatures were pecking around abandoned bunkers, while our advanced targeting computers registered them as potential threats. Every few seconds, a chicken would wander past a sensor, and our weapons systems would flag it for engagement. They weaponized farm animals. It appears so, sir. I felt a headache forming behind my central eye. Just bomb the installations anyway. Ignore the chickens. Already attempted, sir. The moment our ships move into bombardment position, hidden anti-aircraft batteries activate. The chickens were just a distraction to waste our time analyzing the situation. Of course they were. I had spent the last 3 weeks trying every conventional tactic in the Varroc military handbook. Orbital bombardment, ground assaults, strategic strikes, propaganda broadcasts, economic pressure through blockade. The humans countered everything. Not with superior technology or overwhelming force, but with pure, stubborn creativity. They turned civilian factories into weapons manufacturing plants overnight. They converted entertainment networks into coordination systems. They even started using their social media platforms to crowdsource tactical solutions, letting millions of humans simultaneously brainstorm ways to defeat us. It was militarily unsound, strategically chaotic, and devastatingly effective. And through it all, Kara Voss kept appearing in my communications, offering commentary like she was narrating a sporting event. Commander Thel'rax, lovely morning, is it not? Her latest transmission showed her standing in what looked like an underground facility, surrounded by half-assembled machinery and several other humans working frantically. I wanted to thank you for the orbital strike on Sector 7 yesterday. You completely missed the actual military base, but you did take out an abandoned shopping mall that we have been meaning to demolish for years. Saved us the trouble. Your sarcasm is noted, human. Oh, good. I was worried it was too subtle. She wiped something oily off her hands with a cloth that was already saturated with various fluids. Listen, I know you are busy with the whole conquering thing, but I wanted to give you a heads up. Remember those submarine missiles I mentioned? We have been busy. Busy doing what? She smiled that dangerous smile I had come to recognize. You will see in about 4 hours, but I will give you a hint. We got inspired by something called the Trojan horse. Ever heard of it? The wooden horse? The ancient deception tactic? That was in your own historical files. Sure was. Great story. Really emphasized the importance of not accepting gifts from your enemies. She paused dramatically. Or in this case, not ignoring debris that appears to be drifting harmlessly in your patrol routes. My primary heart skipped a beat. Debris? Yup. Lots of it. Wreckage from all those satellites and platforms you destroyed. Just floating around in orbit, completely harmless. Nobody would ever think to check inside hollowed-out satellite fragments for teams of humans in armored suits with breaching charges. That would be crazy. I spun toward my sensor officer. Scan all debris in our vicinity, now. Sir, detecting multiple human biosigns inside 37 debris fragments. They are attached to our ship hulls. They are cutting through the armor right now. Alarms blared across the fleet as human saboteurs, who had been floating in fake debris for hours waiting for the right moment, began breaching our ships. They moved in, Small teams hitting critical systems with shaped charges and electromagnetic disruptors before escaping back into space. It was brilliant. It was insane. It was exactly the kind of tactic that should not work against a professional military force, except it was working perfectly. All ships purge external debris with point defense systems. Marines repel boarders. Someone find me a solution before these primitives tear my fleet apart from the inside. Kara was still on screen, watching with obvious satisfaction. "How is your day going, Commander? Eventful?" "You are going to lose, Kara Voss. These tactics buy you time, nothing more." "Time is all we need." Her expression turned serious. "Every day you spend here is a day you are not conquering somewhere else. Every ship we damage is a ship that needs repairs. Every soldier you lose is one less soldier for your empire. We do not need to defeat you, Commander. We just need to make you decide we are not worth the effort." The Varroc Dominion does not abandon conquests. Then I guess we are going to find out who is more stubborn. An empire that has won every battle for centuries, or a species that invented the phrase, "hold my beer and watch this." She reached forward to end the transmission, then stopped. "Oh, one more thing. See that guy behind me? The one with the terrible haircut and the coffee stain on his shirt?" A human male waved at the camera. He looked completely unremarkable, slightly disheveled, and was holding a tablet covered in technical readouts. "That is Marcus Webb. He used to design video games before the invasion. Now he has been helping coordinate our defense using game theory and simulation models. Turns out, a lot of the skills from making interactive entertainment translate pretty well to asymmetric warfare. Funny how that works." The transmission ended as my ship shuddered from internal explosions. The human saboteurs were doing remarkable damage before my Marines finally drove them back. 3 ships had to withdraw entirely due to critical system failures. I looked at the tactical display, at the damaged vessels, at the planet that refused to break, and I felt something I had not experienced in a very long time: doubt. "Rixta, bring up casualty reports and resource expenditure." She compiled the data. The numbers were not catastrophic, but they were concerning. We had lost 12 ships destroyed, 23 heavily damaged. Troop casualties were mounting. Supply lines were stretched. And most troubling, fleet morale was declining, as soldiers realized this was not going to be the easy conquest they had expected. "Sir, request permission to speak freely." "Granted." "The troops are starting to call this the Mud Ball campaign. They say conquering Earth is like trying to grab mud with your hands. The harder you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers." "That is not very flattering." "No, sir, but it is accurate. I made a decision. Perhaps not the decision my superiors would have wanted, but the right decision nonetheless. Prepare my personal shuttle. I am going to the surface." "Sir, that is extremely dangerous. The humans could kill you the moment you land." "They could, but they will not." I stood from my command chair, feeling my combat armor adjust to my movements. "Kara Voss wants to make this personal. Fine. Let us make it personal. You are going to challenge a human engineer to single combat?" "Sir, that is insane." "No, Rixta. I am going to talk to her, face to face, because I suspect she is as tired of this stalemate as I am, and because sometimes the best weapon is not a plasma rifle, but honest communication." The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, taking fire from 3 different ground installations before my communications officer managed to transmit our intentions. A temporary ceasefire was arranged, and I landed in the middle of what had once been a major human city, but was now mostly rubble. Kara Voss was waiting for me, surrounded by a dozen armed humans, but standing front and center with her arms crossed. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, fresh burns on her hands, and that perpetual grease stain that seemed to be a permanent part of her appearance. "Commander Thel'rax," she said, as I disembarked. "Bold move, coming down here. My people wanted to shoot you out of the sky." "But you stopped them. Why?" "Curiosity. Also, I wanted to see if you were really as big as you look on camera. You are. Very impressive. Terrifying, even. Must be great for intimidation." We stood facing each other, predator and prey, conqueror and defender, alien and human. Except, the lines were blurrier than they should have been. "You have fought well," I said formally. "Your tactics are unconventional, but effective. Your courage is admirable." "Thanks. You have also fought well, apart from the whole invading my planet thing. Your ships are beautiful, your soldiers are professional, and your strategic planning is solid. Under different circumstances, I would have enjoyed studying your technology. Under different circumstances, I would have enjoyed teaching you." She smiled slightly. "So, why are you here, Commander? Come to offer surrender terms?" "No, I came to offer you a choice." I gestured toward the ruins around us. "Look at your world, Kara Voss. How many have died in these 3 weeks? How many cities have burned? How much will you sacrifice before you accept the inevitable?" "As much as it takes." "That is what I thought you would say." I sat down on a piece of rubble, making myself less threatening. "So let me tell you a story. 400 years ago, I was assigned to conquer a species called the Morthak. They were warriors, proud and fierce. They fought us for 3 years, never surrendering, never breaking. And then their planet died. Not because we destroyed it, but because their infrastructure collapsed, their ecosystem failed, and their people starved, while still defiant." Kara listened, her expression unreadable. "I won that campaign," I continued, "but I did not feel like a conqueror. I felt like an executioner. The Morthak are extinct now. Their culture, their history, their potential, all gone because neither side was willing to find another solution. And you think Earth will end up the same way? I think you are too stubborn to surrender, and I am too proud to retreat, which means we will fight until one of us is destroyed. Is that really what you want?" She was quiet for a long moment, staring at the ruined buildings. "What are you proposing?" "A compromise. Join the Dominion, not as conquered subjects, but as autonomous members. Keep your governments, your culture, your way of life. In exchange, you provide technological innovation and military support when needed. No subjugation, no slavery, no destruction of what makes you human. And you get what out of this? I get to avoid watching another species destroy itself over pride. I get access to the most creative military minds I have encountered in centuries. And honestly, I get to stop fighting this exhausting war against an enemy who weaponizes chickens and hides soldiers in satellite debris." Kara laughed, a genuine sound that cut through the tension. "When you put it that way, it does sound ridiculous." "It is ridiculous. All of this is ridiculous. We are killing each other over political boundaries and imperial pride, when we could be learning from each other instead." She walked over and sat down next to me, which startled the guards on both sides. "You know what the worst part is? You are right. We are being stubborn for the sake of being stubborn. We could lose everything just to prove we would not give up. So, what do? We stop being idiots, I guess." She extended her hand, a human gesture I had learned meant peaceful agreement. "Compromise. Autonomy. No conquest, just cooperation. But if you ever threaten Earth again, I will personally invent a weapon specifically designed to make your life miserable. I wrapped my primary manipulator around her small hand carefully. I would expect nothing less. We sat there for a while, human and alien, discussing terms and conditions while our respective forces watched in confusion. It took 6 hours to hammer out the basics of an agreement. Earth would join the Varroc Dominion as a protectorate rather than a conquest. They would maintain independence while gaining access to galactic technology and trade. In return, they would provide defensive support and technological consultation. It was not a traditional victory. My superiors would probably question my decision. But as I watched Kara explain the agreement to her people, saw the relief and cautious optimism on their faces, I knew it was the right choice. "So, Commander," Kara said as we prepared to part ways, "what happens now?" "Now, I file the most complicated campaign report in Varroc history. And you get to explain to your people why you negotiated with the alien Warlord instead of shooting him." "Fair enough. Hey, one question before you go. Why me? You could have negotiated with generals or presidents or diplomats. Why did you come talk to the grease-covered engineer?" I considered the question carefully. "Because you understood something most leaders forget. War is not about who has the bigger weapons or the stronger army. It is about who has the will to continue when continuation becomes unbearable. You showed me that humans have that will in abundance. But you also showed me that you are smart enough to know when to fight and when to talk. That is surprisingly wise for a conquering warlord." "I am full of surprises," she grinned. "You know what? I think this is going to work out. Earth gets to stay independent, you get to say you successfully integrated a new species into your empire, and I get to study alien technology. Everybody wins." "Everybody wins," I agreed, "though I suspect your people are going to find creative ways to cause trouble within the Dominion." "Oh, absolutely. We are going to be the most annoying protectorate you have ever had. But we will also be the most innovative, the most determined, and probably the most useful when things get difficult." "I am counting on it." 6 months later, I stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominance, reviewing reports from Earth. They had already begun reverse engineering Varroc shield technology and had somehow managed to improve it by 17%. Human engineers were being requested by other Dominion worlds to help solve complex problems, and Kara Voss had been appointed as the official liaison between Earth and the Varroc military, which meant I received regular transmissions featuring her various projects. The latest one showed her standing next to something that looked like a fusion reactor had a baby with a particle accelerator. "Commander, check this out. We combined your power generation systems with our magnetic containment designs and created something that produces twice the output at half the size. We are calling it the Hybrid Mark I, but Jenkins wants to name it the Spite Drive, because we built it specifically to show off. What do you think?" I studied the designs she had transmitted. They were brilliant, unconventional, and would probably revolutionize power systems across the Dominion. "I think you are going to change the galaxy, Kara Voss." "Damn right I am. Oh, and, Commander? Thanks for not blowing up my planet. That was cool of you. Thanks for not killing me when I landed. That was also appreciated." She laughed. "Anytime you want to visit, you are welcome here. Fair warning, though. My mom wants to meet you. She keeps saying she needs to thank the alien who finally made me clean my workshop. Apparently, the threat of orbital bombardment was very motivating." "I will keep that in mind." The transmission ended, and I found myself smiling. which was not an expression that came naturally to Varroc faces, but had become more common since dealing with humans. Rixta approached with a new set of orders from Dominion Command. "Sir, we have been assigned to integrate 3 more species into the Empire. Standard subjugation protocols." I looked at the orders, then at Earth rotating peacefully below, then back at my tactical officer. "Rixta, send a message to Command. Request permission to attempt diplomatic integration before military action. Reference the Earth campaign as precedent." "Sir, that is highly irregular." "So is successfully integrating a species that weaponizes farm animals." "But it worked, did it not?" She considered this. "It did work surprisingly well. Earth forces have already assisted with security operations in 2 sectors, and their technological contributions have been significant. Permission to speak freely?" "Always." "I think you were right, sir. Fighting the humans would have been a mistake. They are much more valuable as allies than as conquered subjects, and more entertaining as friends than as enemies." "That too, sir." I transmitted the request to Command, knowing it would probably be denied, but hoping that perhaps, just perhaps, the Varroc Dominion could learn something from one stubborn human engineer who had refused to be conquered. 3 days later, I received a response, not from Command, but from Kara. "Hey, Commander, heard you are trying to reform galactic conquest policy. Good luck with that. In the meantime, want to help us with a project? We are designing a new class of hybrid human Varroc warship, and we need someone who actually knows military doctrine to keep us from building something completely insane." "Well, more insane than usual. Pay is terrible, but the coffee is unlimited. Let me know." I looked at Rixta. "Prepare my shuttle." "Sir, you are going back to Earth?" "I am going to help design a warship with humans. What could possibly go wrong?" "Everything, probably. But it would be interesting, innovative, and absolutely worth the effort. Because that was the thing about humans. They did not just survive. They adapted. They grew. They made you better whether you wanted to be or not. And sometimes, the best conquests were the ones you walked away from, leaving behind allies instead of subjects." As my shuttle descended toward Earth for the 2nd time, I thought about the Morthak, about all the species that had fought to extinction rather than find compromise. And I thought about Kara Voss, covered in grease and grinning like a maniac, who had shown an old warrior that there were more ways to win than through force alone. The Varroc Dominion had come to conquer Earth. Instead, Earth had conquered us. And honestly, I could not have asked for a better defeat.